Do you have any plans for future design experiments, or what's the direction of the Hill Guitar Company today?
Well, the signature instruments that I've been building for a number of years, I've been doing double tops. Then I put on an elevated fingerboard. Over the last 6, 8 months, I've been experimenting with lattice bracing on the double top, which is actually sounds like way overkill, but the results are really cool. I'm really excited about that. And I'm making a combination of those things that's a little bit less expensive. So a series of guitars called the Performance Series that takes a lot of those elements, the double top, the lattice, the sound ports, puts them into a fairly conventional guitar that's somewhat affordable and makes something that people can buy easily and play and have a good time with, I hope. But this is where, in general, the guitar building is at least two major components. One is making the guitars. That's really fun and exciting and kind of never ending. The other is making a living. And that means you got to run a business and develop a business. And that's something that no guitar maker ever wants to do. That's not what you get into it for. But if you're going to succeed at it and have it support your family and have it be a good, viable thing for the customer base, then that's something that has to be dealt with one way or another, like it or not.
Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your New World brand. I've actually played on one for the past 4 years, and it's served me really well. Can you tell me a little bit more about the guitars in general? How did you go about starting that, and how do you deal with quality control issues and things like that?
Well, boy, that's a novel, a suspense novel to be written. The New World guitars at this point are all made in China. I did actually start a brand in Mexico in the 90s, and I worked there pretty successfully for a while, but the challenges were tremendous. And eventually I closed that shop, and it was right around the same time that I started branching into China. Now, when I went to China, I was recruited, basically. Some people, some guys who had a violin making company, a successful violin making company, asked me to come and teach them to make guitars and be a partner in this operation. To make a very long story less long or short, I did that. So went into this violin company where they had some skilled workers in violin making, but they didn't know anything about guitars, and they didn't have any of the equipment and stuff that we'd need. We just working in a little tiny room, cement room with almost no tools. But we started building a Torres instrument, and so I essentially started at the basics of building a Torres guitar there with one or two guys who I really grew fond of, and they're very talented, definitely very talented violin makers already, and they became talented guitar makers. Now, that grew, and maybe one of the instrument you're playing came out of that workshop. It grew into something much more sophisticated over time because I just kept going back and going back. It's grueling because the flights are just terrible. And it took a long time to get comfortable in China because the language is probably mostly because of the language and general culture. But man, it was hard to get my feet under me there, but I did. And the partnership didn't work out. The instruments, once again, building the instruments, that was a joy. It was a challenge, but it was a joy. And that was, but then business, that was the hard part. Making the instruments, even though it was hard, it was still the easy part. Making that into a business. First partnership, it just didn't work out for a lot of reasons. But on the way through that, I did get comfortable with functioning in China. And I learned that, the workforce there is incredibly disciplined, just hardworking. It's really there's a desire to succeed. There's and success can mean many different things. It can mean just having the biggest guitar factory or making the most guitars or whatever kind of product. But it can also mean doing the best. And the people that I'm working with now sort of came out as a second chance, really. And it's in partnership with a German guy, myself, and a Chinese partner. Are making we've put it together. We're so far the partnership is good, the quality of the instruments is good, and we're constantly working on getting it better. Now this is a pretty big operation that I only get a few guitars from. Most of them go to other companies, and I am just kind of acting as a designer and troubleshooter in that now. But then I get my own line of New World guitars. I'm the smallest customer of this company, but I guess I'm an important one since I taught them to do what they're doing. So they treat me pretty well.
So how do you deal with...
You ask about the quality control.
Yeah.
Quality control.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? Or how do you test every guitar that comes through,
I do, and all of the ones that come through my shop, yes. I mean, we automatically just take them out and do whatever they need. Mm-hmm. And I never believe that it's up to full standard. I don't expect a guitar to arrive and be at 100%. I just know better than that. Yeah. So myself or my son, usually it's my son now, goes over the instruments and checks them all out. And he may do 15 minutes work, he maybe does 2 hours work on an instrument. But he makes it so that it's the best, quality instrument especially for its price, that goes out the door here. And I check, if I'm in town, I check them all before they go in the box. I love to play them, even if I'm only playing them 15 or 20 seconds. I got to keep a feel for what it is. This is all a thing it's a parallel line. My guitar shop that's here, where I'm sitting now, I do have a team of workers, about 5 people now, that we all work together and produce some really extraordinary guitars. But no matter what, when you're dealing with, even just myself, working by myself, I have to deal with quality control. When you're dealing with a team of workers, you have to be always looking, always trying to make things better, always prepared for what if something goes wrong, and refining things all the time. Now, things can escape me 50 feet away on the other side of a wall. That's going on if I'm not looking. It's the same thing in China, only it happens to be 6,000 miles or whatever it is. So I have to go there often, about 3 times a year now, and to deal with things. But mostly I find out quality issues by ordering the instruments and getting them here. Then I have to deal with it. I have to fix anything that's wrong with it. And that's the way that I discover what needs to be done when I go back to China. Now, at the same time that we're dealing with quality and production and precision and scheduling issues for the existing instruments, I'm also bringing in new designs, trying to upgrade the upper end, teach the core builders, the most important supervisors, or really the custom builders, to keep getting better and to have good designs and to keep making better guitars, so that you always have an echelon that's real high. You can't produce very many of them, but a real high-grade instruments will pull up the quality of the rest of the production line. And this is all kind of about organizing the business, organizing the production, organizing the distribution, making models of guitars that people want. And it required that I kind of shift my paradigm from thinking, oh, I am Geppetto, I am going to be a master guitar maker, I'm going to work in solitude in my workshop behind my house and do everything, produce each single instrument, there's a limit to what you can do with that. And both in the workshop here, at home, or in my business home, and also in the workshop that is in China, I've learned to have workers be extensions of my hands and eyes. And that can be really, really exciting.